Hello everyone, it's Theme Avenue, I'm Eric. I recently went to Holiday World in Santa Claus, Indiana, and right off the bat, it's a great park. I highly encourage you to go. But here are some things you should know if you go to the park. So starting with the beginning of my experience, I went on the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend. You might think it would be really crowded and a terrible experience, but no. I was able to get on most things without a whole lot of lines, and I'll get to that a little later. So the entry experience. You go under a nice archway and you're parking across the street from the actual park. You go underneath the road and you are greeted by the Raven. The Raven's top of the lift hill and drop are right there, and that's pretty fun. Entering the park, I found the Christmas theming of the entrance plaza to be light but very nice. And now to really talk about the day at the park. At opening, I went to Raven first, and I do suggest that you go in this order. Hitting Raven and Legend first, then going to Voyage and Thunderbird. And then you can do that again once the lines die down, not too long afterwards. It is vital to know that most people will go to Splash and Safari. The water park is very, very popular, and I opted just for the dry park when I went, and the longest line in the dry park was 20 minutes for front row on Voyage. So you don't really have to rush to experience any of the major rides, and you can ultimately go at whatever pace you want. My plan was able to get me on everything within the first 90 minutes, including a breakdown on Thunderbird. That also includes Gobbler Getaway. And I rode Raven first, but I'm just going to cover all of the wooden coasters now, since those were my first 3 rides. So those may know that Holiday World is famous for having 3 of the most insane wooden roller coasters out there. Not enough people really talk about how crazy all 3 of them are. I consider El Toro tamer than all of them though. They are not for everyone, I gotta say that. They throw you around from start to finish. They are definitely not the smoothest wooden coasters out there, especially compared to some of the newer ones like Mystic Timbers, but I like them all, and I rode them from least favorite to favorite by chance. Let's talk about each. The Raven is my least favorite. It has some great drops, particularly this one random drop in the near end of the ride. I love the great setting, and like all the wooden coasters here, it's awesome. The ride ultimately is held back by feeling kinda short. The ride's duration is honestly the biggest flaw with any of the park's major coasters, and that is honestly a good thing. It shows that the rides don't have a whole lot of major flaws. The Legend is my second favorite, and it absolutely forces you into the side of your seat the whole time. It is very focused on intensity, similar to Twister at Knoebels. I like it more than Raven because it is a much longer ride, it's fantastic if you can handle it, and there's a few fun little theming elements I can mention. The ride is a light theme to the Legend of Sleepy Hollow, so as you leave, a bell gets rung, and at the top of the lift hill you can hear some scary forest sounds like wolves howling, and I think that's pretty fun. Then you have the Voyage, the best wooden roller coaster, period. It doesn't quite stack up to the modern hybrids of today, but it is an experience, and it's one of the best rides out there. With awesome airtime for the first part, and some insanely big turns throughout the forest that seem to bring you dangerously close to the ground. There is a lot to enjoy on the ride. The sense of speed is consistent and unrivaled by nearly all wooden coasters, and even most steel coasters. It is a long ride, but it's well paced and full of surprises. I like the ride most in the front row, but I highly encourage you to get multiple rides. Do that on all the wooden coasters, honestly. This ride is rattly in several parts, but that rarely takes away from the major experience being awesome, and it sometimes can add to the experience. This pretty much lives up to the hype. The fact that Phoenix at Knoebels beats this at the Golden Ticket Awards frequently seems like it could only be the result of some serious nostalgia factor in favor of Knoebels. Let's discuss the other big roller coaster in the park, Thunderbird. Awesome wing coaster. This one has a launch unlike the others, and that launch is shockingly great. Every inversion gives off some hang time, especially that final one, and the ride is unique. The pacing is great, and the forces are different because you're getting a good sense of speed close to the ground. I'd say overall, the ride is on par with Gatekeeper and X-Flight, due to having less standout moments overall, but having some significant highs that probably beat the best of those two. I'd say overall, I like it more than X-Flight, but it might be 1 or 2 spots below Gatekeeper in my overall ranking. Meaning it's an awesome ride. I like Gatekeeper more than the average person for sure. And in terms of the overall park, I take this over the Raven, but not the Legend or the Voyage. So that's the big rides in the park. What else is there? The next best ride is Gobbler Getaway, the best Sally Dark ride besides Lost Kingdom Adventure at Legoland Florida, and as far as I've been on, probably nothing else. It is a fun little ride. The theme is good, and I like the ending gag I'm not going to spoil because it is really funny. And the guns and targets all work really well, far better than any boo blasters, and I find the sets just as good as any other Sally Dark ride. So it's definitely a fun one. This is really it for the noteworthy rides of the park, honestly. If you haven't been to any other parks, there are some others that are definitely worth getting on. They have a small drop tower called Liberty Launch that launches riders upwards and gives some surprising feelings of weightlessness. There is a train ride called Holodoc Express full of nursery rhyme character statues. Raging Rapids and Frightful Falls, they seem like decent water rides, and just walking around you'll have plenty to enjoy. But I think if you go to a handful of smaller parks and even larger parks in the country, you'll find a lot of the rides are very similar, so there isn't a ton outside of the big roller coasters and Gobbler Getaway. So that's really it for the noteworthy rides, but I said at the beginning this park is one of my favorites, so what else makes it so good? Well, let's discuss other aspects of the park. First off, appearance. The park looks very nice. The holiday theming is light in each area, but the areas all have very distinct feels that fit with their themes quite well, with the exception of Thanksgiving, which is a bit lighter on the theming than the others. The theme doesn't carry over that well there, but the rest is good, and the park is immaculately well kept. Every ride looks great, the landscaping is top notch, and the pathways are especially clean. On the note of management of the park, let's talk operations. I don't think the operations are phenomenal here. Dispatches on the wooden coasters are all average, though they did run 2 trains in all of them, so that's great. There was some stacking on all of them though. I think Thunderbird had some pretty standout operations overall, not the best out there, but definitely above average, and the mechanical issue was done in like 10 minutes, so that is a good point toward the park. The dispatches might honestly be the one area of the park I think could use improvement. They are good, but the rest of the stuff of the park is really good and I don't want any changes there, whereas level of Kings Island dispatches maybe could make this park even better. That's the only really nitpick I have with this park, and I feel it could improve the overall experience. Food at the park is solid. It beats out many offerings at chain parks, primarily for the Plymouth Rock Cafe having a good amount of stellar options. I did have some pretty bad pretzel bites at one place, so not everything is a winner, but I do recommend going to Plymouth Rock Cafe for the ideal meal in the park. That said, you're more likely to get your calories in with beverages. Holiday World does something I have never seen at a park before: offer free soft drinks. There are several stations, each known as a Pepsi Oasis, throughout the park, mostly near restaurants and food stalls, where you can get all sorts of Pepsi products, including the almighty mug root beer. I believe there are over a dozen of these stations in the park, and it is not a large property overall. They have so many of these that I recall getting a drink at one, looking across a pathway, and seeing another. Most parks where you pay for soft drinks don't have this many. Relative to the size, a lot of parks, Six Flags parks mainly, you're going to be walking around from Coke's freestyle machine to another, and you'll be on the opposite side of the park. So Holiday World has very accessible beverages. Another big plus for this is that they are separate from the food stalls, so you can go up and grab a drink without having to wait in line. This free soda policy, along with free parking, free sunscreen, and several other aspects, they add a certain charm to the park I especially love. And I feel like other parks need to take notes on this because it's baffling how there are so few Coke freestyle machines in other parks and similar if they're trying to get revenue from soft drinks. Holiday World isn't, but they still are doing a phenomenal job. I was mentioning charm a little bit earlier, and truthfully, the roller coasters are not the strongest aspect of the park. What really makes this place is management and atmosphere. Atmosphere is a hard aspect of a park to explain. It's a combination of appearance, location, photogenic nature, people, and other factors. That said, I think Holiday World might have the best park atmosphere of any amusement park in the US. Many people talk about how Knoebels has that vintage charm, and it makes it especially enjoyable. This park is my equivalent to Knoebels. It feels somewhat old-fashioned, though to a lesser extent, but has way more charm for me. It is not easy to describe, but this park is very pleasant to walk around in a way that almost none are. This, coupled with a handful of very noteworthy rides and several enjoyable attractions along the paths, makes for an excellent experience. You've heard a lot of comparisons to Knoebels in this video, and truthfully, I think they are quite similar. Both are independent, offer 3 wooden coasters and one other more modern steel coaster. They're both quite affordable in both admission and parking, and they have plenty of charm. I have no nostalgia for either, but I definitely prefer Holiday World. In fact, Holiday World is my favorite independent park in the country. I would even take it over Hershey Park, as the chaotic nature of that park is not really my favorite in terms of the atmosphere and operations, compared to the more calm but still somewhat lively Holiday World. I struggle to really explain what makes this park so good, but I think that many of you, if you go to the park, are going to feel similarly if you enjoy a visit. With a handful of awesome rides, excellent management, some unique perks, and an unbeatable atmosphere, I highly recommend a visit to Holiday World. Even if it's pretty out of the way for you, it is a great place to go to, and one of the best amusement parks in the country. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed this video. Comment down below your thoughts on Holiday World and any questions you have. Subscribe for more theme park content. I'll see you next time.